Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you with us for Table Talk Thursday. And I've always enjoyed this time getting together with you, hopefully sharing some practical and relevant things with you that'll help you in your daily life. And tonight is not going to be any different. We hope that you'll share the link, start a watch party, bring somebody, invite somebody with you. I think tonight's topic is really going to be a blessing and a help to us, especially since it involves our lives like never before. Tonight we're going to be talking about the mistakes and miracles of the digital world, right? We're all a part of it now. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and maybe offer some things that would be a help and a resource to you. But first and foremost, our guest tonight is Michael Henson, and well known to New Life. So glad you're with us, man. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. And Michael has a master's in education. He's taught in our Christian school. He's taught in universities, colleges. He's a creator and producer of the Constructivist podcast, which you'll definitely want to look up and get a hold of. He has some great podcasts on there with some people in our community that are making a significant impact. He's also launching out as a church strategist and consultant for church marketing and social media. And my favorite, he is the unsung New Life hero behind the scenes for our social media as the creative director. And so I appreciate that. And he has a big task before him, not only getting content out there, but training all of the staff who right now is doing their utmost best to get content and everything on social media. We're not going to ask you to talk about how that's been going, but I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for doing the work. It's a big job right now. It seems like every church is trying to be online and trying to help people out. It's a big job. It's a big job right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody's woken up to the power of social media and the importance of it, for sure.
I had a friend send out a little meme as soon as all of this broke out, and suddenly pastors were trying to figure out ways to communicate with their people online and social media and all of that, and said, and just like that, we all became televangelists. So that's
not wrong.
But when it comes down to individuals and families, every one of us, that's the way we're trying to stay connected, and that's the way that we're trying to stay sane. And the way that we find entertainment. It's the way that we even learn. Even there's classes. We find students that are learning. Everything's online now. And we're buying groceries online, getting them delivered. We're ordering food online. And there's so much stuff that's online. So I thought it would be good for us to kind of talk about that tonight and get a God perspective on all of it, but definitely offer maybe some practical help and advice. So I appreciate you coming in to talk a little bit about that. Kind of to set us up for what we're going to be talking about tonight, I ran across a few statistics that really opened up my eyes to the magnitude of everything that's going on right now, not just in our nation, but in our world through all the social media. Yeah. In-home media consumption through a Gallup poll is up 42% worldwide. 42% worldwide in-home media consumption. Due to this coronavirus outbreak among internet users worldwide as of March 2020. That includes YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, podcasts, blogs, all of it, up 42%. That's pretty wild. That's pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially considering, like I mentioned before we went live, the fact that the average adult in the world was using social media over 4 hours a day.
It's amazing. Yeah.
As an average, obviously. But
yeah,
and then you add 42% on top of that.
Well, that's why I bought my handy dandy glasses right here.
Yeah.
That's why it's, you got to wear these, keep those blue light rays, whatever they are. I'm not even sure what it is. This could be a gimmick. I'm not sure. But there's something about the screens, they say, that blue light that comes through, and this is supposed to help you.
Treat the symptoms.
There you go. That's right. While we're talking tonight, I've got my phone on because I'm watching the comments. And so if you have questions on what we're talking about tonight, why don't you go ahead and post it. If you've got some comments that you would like to share, I'll try to be aware of that tonight and want to make sure that you feel free to do that in the comment section below. We're so glad that everybody has joined us again. Thank you so much for those that are with us now. Share this link, start a watch party, but we're going to just kind of dive into some things that we're going to talk about. Again, we're going to talk about the mistakes and miracles of the digital world. I want to talk about the mistakes and kind of how we can avoid that. I think it's important that we understand that this is really a double-edged sword, that while it can be used for good, right? It can also be used for evil, and it can also be used as well, and it, like Goliath's sword. Goliath's sword was used against Israel, but David came down, was able to take Goliath's sword and chop his head off. So what way you use it is so important, and really whose side are you on? And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But another statistic, I've already mentioned one where in-home media consumption is up 42%. Another startling statistic, and this is kind of going to lead us into the mistakes of social media, is that porn viewing has seen a 24% rise. A 24% rise. Porn is a $100 billion, not million, $billion business. Pornhub, which is a massive site right now for all of that, has released at the beginning of this a total free, all their videos for free is what I was reading on Fox, that they've just given it out for free, and now this rise of 24%. I think that's where we see the evil side of that. That's just one little small part, but it's a significant part because there's a lot of adults, there's a lot of teens, a lot of everybody in between that can get addicted to that. And then you also see that the massive move of entertainment, just inundated with entertainment. You look at Hollywood, you look at Disney, and they've seen a massive increase in sales via online downloads versus releasing in theaters, right? So they had looked at raising a lot of revenue just from releasing movies and things in theaters, but they're starting to realize, especially with the coronavirus outbreak, is that they can raise more money now just by people downloading it, you know, via these streaming services. So all of this, you know, what does this tell us in your opinion? What does this tell us, and how we need to deal, right, and how we need to use this for the good and not the evil, but avoiding some of those mistakes, because obviously if we just open up our lives, all that, the eye is the gateway to the soul, and right now we're viewing so much content and so much media and so much news and so many posts, and you know, so kind of give us your thought on that, on navigating our way through this gigantic world called the internet.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming reality. It's an overwhelming truth to see all of this coming to light. And like you mentioned, and we'll get into the good stuff a little bit later, but there's so many pitfalls and so many ways that we can be tripped up, and like we've got the obvious ones like pornography and things like that, but some of the things, when I was trying to put my thoughts together for this, is some of that isn't relevant to everyone, but there are some things that are kind of pervasive, easy traps for us to fall into if we're not very careful with it. And so one of the most important things that came to mind is examining our motives for what we're using our technology for. And some of the mistakes we make sneak up on us, right? We've heard about, since social media has been around, the reality is that it's been good and it's been bad. Like there are great things that come from it, there are horrible things that come from it. There are people that use it properly, there are people that don't. But the unspoken truth that we all know and seem to constantly forget is that it is a very curated approach to sharing our lives.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things that kept coming back to me as I was thinking about things to look out for and things to think about, is the fact that everything we're viewing online is curated. And then we're curating what we share. And by that, I mean, we're putting our best foot forward.
All the filters.
Theoretically our best foot forward. And the mistake of this is that it gives those of us that are viewing it an altered perception of reality. And so we look at people that are, like, I'm in the entrepreneur space and I follow a bunch of people. And so it's really, really easy for me to get caught up in I need to be doing more. I need to be doing it faster. I'm not staying up 24/7 working to create an empire or hustle.
Yes.
Right? Because I see all these other people doing it, and then people will work behind the scenes for a decade, and then they're an overnight success. And then my expectation is that I'm going to be an overnight success because I'm doing what they're doing now. And I forget the fact that there's a whole lot hidden behind that wall of social media and
Right.
technology. And then in personal lives, like we see the perfect houses, we see the perfect
Yes.
families, we see
Yeah.
all of this perfection without realizing that it's really a curated approach to that person sharing it. And so we judge ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We start to feel depressed or
Yeah.
anxious or inadequate. And all of these things are definitely opportunities for just as humanity, as humankind, for us to spiral.
Yes.
And then it definitely gives an opportunity for spiritual influence to capitalize on those feelings of inadequacy, or you're not good enough, or you're not doing enough for your family or your husband or your kids or your wife or whatever it is. And it's really easily an unhealthy outcome to something that started off as an innocent thing. It sneaks up on you.
Exactly. I was in a Zoom call. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. You mentioned the word expectations, right? So our expectations, where are they coming from? I was on a Zoom call with some minister friends of mine that I highly respect, and they were speaking into us young ministers. I count myself as a young minister. Young ministers, they were speaking into us. And one of the questions that one of the minister's wives asked us said, where are your expectations coming from? And I think that's so important. She said, you need to really check where your expectations are coming. Are they coming from yourself? Do you put those expectations you do? Are they coming from your peers? Is this something you see your peers doing? Is it coming just from the world around you? You know, you feel this pressure to do, or is it coming from God? Is this something that God is wanting you to do? Is this something that God is wanting you to partake of, or to invest your time in, or to use? You know, so I think judging those motives, or better yet, allowing God and His Word to judge our motives. Say, all right, God, here's what I want to do. You check my motive on this. Is my motive pure? Is my motive right? You know, and where is this pressure? Where is this expectation coming from that I have to do this, or I have to build this? You know, I have to build this wall. You know, I've got to do this project. Where's that pressure coming from in my life? I think that's so important, especially because we're inundated with all of this media. You know, we see all of these things and the filters that we use.
Yeah.
And if the blind lead the blind, we're both going to fall into the same ditch.
Certainly.
Right? I think that's so important. You know, somebody was mentioning these few things, and I'd like your thoughts on this. Some of the mistakes as I was reading through all of this technology and what people were talking about, and some leaders were talking about, is number one, they were talking about distraction versus focus. You know, distraction versus focus. That whenever you're inside this world of media and internet and engaging on your phone or whatever you're doing with whatever device you have, that are you focused, you know, or are you just trying to distract yourself from life, from the pain of life, right? Or from the reality that you see? Are you being focused with what you're doing, you know? So what's your motive? And I think checking back on that, getting your motives right, getting your motives clear is so important. How can we do that? How can we check our motives in that? And what's your thoughts?
So for me, motive kind of comes back. I've got four.
Yeah.
Four things that when because I do a lot of content creation, obviously for the church, for myself, for others, and there are four areas that I try to focus on. When I'm creating something, the questions I ask myself are: is this connecting with someone? Is it educational? Is it inspirational? Actually, hold on. Connection, education, entertainment, or inspiration. And if it's not doing one of those four things, if it's not connecting with someone somehow,
that's really
if
good.
it's not educating, if it's not inspiring or entertaining, because entertainment is valuable in its own way and in the right construct. And if it's not doing one of those four things, chances are the motive is not what it needs to be.
Right. Yeah.
And the result is going to be disappointing. It's going to be harmful to myself or to the person consuming that piece of content.
Yeah.
You know, so I try to check those four things.
I love
right?
that.
Is this, so if it's self-promotional,
Yeah.
like that's a no. It's not doing one of those four things. Is
Yeah.
this presenting a facade of a mask of who I am when that in reality isn't who I am?
Yes.
It's really easy to kind of check those four boxes, and if it doesn't fit in one of those, then
Yeah.
I would ask again. And
You know, on
dig
that
into it.
self that you're mentioning, I mean, that's so huge right now. I think that's the pressure that we feel like we have to put forth a certain image,
Yeah.
a certain image of ourselves. And, you know, if, and again, not to try to over spiritualize everything, but we are believers and we are Christians, and we have to filter everything that we do through the Word of God and through our Creator, right? Because we're made in His image, that it's not about us. And like John said, I must decrease and He must increase. So I think it's that fine balance of, you know, I'll relate it this way. So whenever the whole coronavirus thing hit, number one is I thought I was tech savvy. I thought I knew what I was doing, you know, and I wasn't the best, but I thought, okay, I know about, you know, Facebook and I know about Twitter and I know about YouTube. And then once all this hit and we had to get on, I realized how much I really don't know. Like there's this,
Sure.
oh man, like this button does this and, you know, this setting does this. And I was so out of my element, I felt like a really old guy. And no offense to any old guys, but I felt like a really just uneducated guy, we'll say that. Really uneducated. I just didn't know. But I'll tell you, just in transparency, is that when I started, it was embarrassing to come on, and because you look around at different people producing content, right, and putting out positive messages and things, and I compared myself to what they were doing, and it feels inferior. You know, you feel inferior, like, boy, I can't. How could I ever do that? But yet at the same time, it could not be about me. It had to be about the message.
Yeah.
And God had put a message in my heart. And if I didn't have a physical pulpit in a physical building that I was standing behind to talk to people, then there obviously has to be another way that I communicate what God is sharing with me, what God's speaking to me in order to do that. And I don't think I'm the only one. I mean, you and your wife are doing that, and others in our church are doing that. And I think this kind of dovetails into the creative, the miracle side of technology and social media. Obviously, in the mistakes, we got to look at our motives, and I had to check my motive. I think is how that was, and know that I just had to put it out there. Sometimes you just got to jump in and learn as you go. Do it the best that you can. Surround yourself with good people who can help you kind of direct you in the way that you need to go. But I don't think that should stop us from creating things either. Is that if we're looking at what other people are doing. Boy, I don't have the writing ability of a Melinda Poitras or a Jim Poitras, or people in the church. But I have to put something out there. God's put something within me. So how can I do that? How can I creatively to do that?
Yeah, I think all of us have an innate ability or an innate drive to create, and that I've talked about this a lot in different contexts.
Yeah.
But I think every single person is creative because we were created by a creative creator.
Yes.
And the thing is, I think people tend to look at creatives or the term creative the same way a lot of people look at the term ministry. And like within the church, we think ministry, we immediately think pulpit.
Yeah.
We immediately think preaching, singing, playing some instrument.
So much more.
Teaching.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so much more. And the deal is every single person is created to minister, just like every single person is created to create. That creativity is different. Like I've had this conversation with my wife. Like she'll talk about not feeling creative about various components of stuff she does, but like her unique talents and abilities to accomplish certain things that for me are completely foreign and I wouldn't want to do anyway.
Right.
Are creative. Like there's a point there. I talk to other people that feel very not creative and they're much more comfortable looking at spreadsheets all day and administrating minute details that drive most creatives crazy. And the truth of the matter is that is creativity. in and of itself. It doesn't have to be a paintbrush or a keyboard or a video or a camera.
Yeah.
Like, creativity is what, like, you do with the talents that God's given you. And so, like, my message to people that have that or feel that or that are wanting to create is to just start.
Yeah.
Just start doing it. Just like when all this started, everyone's getting on and trying to do it like this person or that person and trying to create all of this stuff. And fact of the matter, and this is my opinion, but I believe that every single one of us have a tribe. I'm not sure I like that term. It seems a little cliche or overused.
Yeah.
But we've got our group of people that we were created to impact.
Yes.
And so for me, it's about creating in the way that I was made to create. And my responsibility, it's just like sowing a seed. Like, it's our responsibility to sow the seed, and then whatever's going to happen happens. It's outside our control once we accomplish that task. And
right.
so from a creative perspective, it's about creating because we're made to create, and then whatever else comes of it after that isn't up to us. And if it bothers us, like the times that it's bothered me, and it bothers me a lot, I'll be
me too,
blatantly honest. When it's bothering me and when I'm not seeing the fruit that I want to see, it's when my motives have started to shift or gotten a little misaligned, and I am looking at other people and comparing and wishing I was that overnight success. Again, forgetting the fact they've put in decades of work or years of work to get where they are and accomplish what they've accomplished.
That's such a great point too. And I think once you put something out there, you have to leave it in God's hands. You know, it's like, only because I'm a preacher, I refer back to this illustration, though. There's been many times I've preached a message, and afterwards, you just want to crawl under a couch, or want to hide under the carpet or something, because you don't feel like it was presented or the message was given in the way that you really felt it at the time that you received it, and that you put it all together and you put it out there, and you're like, oh, that just flopped. It was just terrible. You have to come back to that point of, okay, that's what God put within me. I gave it my best, and I have to leave it into God's hands for the results, for whatever he does. What would you say to people, though, because you mentioned it too, everybody's online now. Everybody's got something that they want to post. Everybody's got something that they want to do, want to say. Everybody's finding out, that they can do stuff on social media. What would you say to people that they feel like they have that gifting, something they want to share, but there's a lot of noise? Sure. Like, what are some ways that you found that you can kind of cut through the noise as you're creating and as you want to be relevant and as you kind of want to make an impact on people? What are some ways that you think that we could cut through all of that noise that's going on right now?
I've told this to other people that have kind of asked a similar question in a different context. Like, people that are wanting to create, but they're scared that they're not going to be good enough. Yeah. Or that people are going to look at them and be appalled at what they do. And my response, I'm kind of laughing because it's a little bit snarky, but when nobody's paying attention, that's the perfect time to start, because it's going to be horrible. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be bad, and that's okay. Like, that's part of the process. There's a quote by Ira Glass. He's a NPR news storyteller, basically. Yeah. And he's got a quote talking about that, about when you're creating, if you're creative, you start out and there's this gap between what you create and what you want it to create. And you recognize that gap, and it's horrible. Yeah. And it's frustrating. But the fact that you recognize that gap is an indication that you need to keep going, because if you didn't recognize that gap, then you're not. It's like a singer not realizing they didn't hit
That's
the
where
note.
The real trouble is.
Right. So the fact that you realize you missed that note is a good thing, right? Because you can hear that, that was off. I've got some work to do to hit that note. Yeah. Right. So creatively, it's the same thing. So people that are wanting to create, I say, go and do it, and then the better you get, the audience will come. Someone I'm connected with on LinkedIn wrote a book called The Creative Curve. And he talks about how everyone that wants to do something can do whatever they want to do. And basically it's about the effort you put into it, not the talent you're born with. And one of the examples, I just looked this up and I was telling my daughter just a couple nights ago, this guy, in his mid-30s, late 30s. He'd never done anything creative, and he wanted to become a professional artist. And his name is Jonathan Hardesty. He started painting or drawing one picture every single day. And over the course of 9 years, he went from a complete novice to an accomplished professional artist, selling his paintings and his artwork. And now that's his full-time occupation, is creating art. So it's not about having all the talent in the world. It's about, like, you just start and you keep going, you keep going, you keep going.
Yeah.
And then if you want to put, this is another thing. If you want to put the message out, put the message out. If you don't want to, don't. I think we forget that in this world of social media, where it feels like I've got to be documenting everything I'm doing and I've got to be sharing all of this with everyone.
Yeah.
Like, you still have a choice.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've talked about this in other contexts with authenticity. Like, I can be as authentic as I want to be. If there are things I don't want to share, then I don't share them.
That's so good.
And same with social media. Like, you don't have to post everything.
Would you say that again? I feel like somebody in our audience right now needs to hear that. You
don't have to post everything.
You don't have to post everything.
You don't have to share everything you've seen that you agree with.
That's right. I think that's so good. I think using the could we use the word wisdom? Yeah, we could use wisdom and that not having to share. But the point that you first started out with, I think, is so good, is that everybody's putting things out right now, and now's the time to kind of put it out. If everybody's scribbling, and everybody's coloring outside the lines in the classroom, now's the time for you to color outside the lines, instead of you being in kindergarten and them throwing you in a high school class, going, hey, now you need, and then doing it right now. I think I'm picking up on what you were talking about, is that right now everybody's putting things out. So if now's the time to a low risk, if you will.
Yeah.
It's not as risky because so many people are doing it, to put yourself out there and to try new things.
Yeah. I'm the person that I'll find a YouTube channel that I really, really like, and I go back and I filter to the oldest video first, and I go back and look at what their stuff looked like at the beginning. And most of the time it's horrible. Yeah. Or it's passable at best. And the fact of the matter is, like, we're talking, it's been 8 years and it's got 150, 200 views. Yeah. 1,000 views on a YouTube video from an artist that's now seeing hundreds of thousands of views. Wow. Even now, people aren't going back and looking at the bad stuff. So now's the beginning is the safest time to create stuff. And most of the time it's just that mental roadblock we put, trying to protect ourselves or keep from being embarrassed. But if you're truly wanting to create,
I think now too it's so incredible to me is that it's not just companies that are trying to advertise or produce content. It's not just entrepreneurs. Anyone can use the medium of social media, of technology. Anyone can use it with just a little bit of education on how to. They can use it to create some incredible things. They can use it to communicate with people across the world. They can use that to stay connected with family and friends. There's somebody in our church that created a group years ago, actually. So this was even before the coronavirus, that they started a group that connected them to people who used to be in our church years ago. And for one reason or another, they moved out, or they've walked away from God, or they've spread out all over the nation, all over the world. But she started this group page on Facebook, and she stays connected with them all. And people have tuned into our live stream services, and she's been able to encourage. And they even get together. This was before the coronavirus too. They get together like once a year or so, and they do like a big barbecue or something. They do a big get together. Cool. But it started by her using that Facebook group page. So it wasn't that she was trying to start a business. She wasn't trying to make money. She wasn't even trying to, start a blog or a podcast or anything, just trying to connect to people. I think the possibilities are limitless if we really use, and I mentioned this on Wednesday, is our imagination. If we can use our imagination to see the possibilities that are there, like God did whenever he looked into the void of the night and he saw all of the green grass and the sun and the moon and the stars and he spoke it into existence. I think if we look into that, we could really create something beautiful out of that.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's about providing value, creating value for people. Yeah. And that's kind of the core. That's the foundation below what I mentioned with the connect, educate, inspire, entertain. Like, you've got to provide value, and those are kind of the four ways you can do it. And
Yeah.
if you're not providing value, then it's just noise. Right? If you're not providing value in one of those four ways, then that's where you run the risk of being just, noisy or obnoxious, or missing the point. And again, that value, that's another word that I feel like it would be really, really easy for people to assign someone else's interpretation to. But value, just like ministry and creativity, is going to be as unique as each of us is.
Yeah.
And so, like, if value for you is, I don't even know. My mind just went blank. But whatever value looks like for you.
If I want to learn a new skill, or if I want to,
if you want to learn a new skill, if you want to show, like, you just love needlepoint.
Yeah.
And you want to show people, like, what you've done with needlepoint, and you want to help people learn how to do it to pass the time. Like, we got plenty of time on our hands. Like, that's valuable to people. It's not going to be valuable to everybody. Nothing's valuable to everyone. But, like, recognizing that, again, we were created for a purpose. We were created for a ministry. We have creativity. And then, like, we were created to, like, bring value into our world, I think is a huge realization that is really easy to slip away.
Yes.
It's really easy for that to kind of get picked at and pulled away. But I think it's something we've got to constantly remind ourselves of. Like,
I want to ask you about that value, because I think that's so important. I want to ask you about that. Before I ask you about that, Brother Poitras was asking, what's the name of that Creative Curve book that you were talking about?
It's The Creative Curve.
The Creative Curve. And who's the, do you remember the author?
It's by Alan Gannett, Gannett.
Awesome. Alan Gannett.
Yeah.
Awesome. The Creative Curve.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So he talks about the fact that, like, you can do anything with enough time and intention and focus. It's about quantity of practice over talent results in ability.
That's really good.
Fascinating. Yeah.
When it comes back to the value, I want to go back to that because that's so important on creating value for people and what's important to them. How do you measure what's valuable to people? Whenever we're talking technology and social media, obviously it seems like metrics is one of that, like how many views am I getting or how many likes. Is that the only way that we can measure value, in your opinion? Is that the only way that, whether I'm a businessman or just an individual or a family, how do I measure that I'm bringing value to somebody?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think there are multiple layers to it. I think once you've established a following, then metrics come into play.
Yeah.
But I think that value in social media, it's very, very easy for us to divorce a metric from the human behind it, the humanity behind it. And so we see that one like or one view or one heart, and we're like,
yeah,
I wasted my time. There was no point. I'm horrible. I'm just going to quit now. And we fail to realize that that's one person that cared enough about what we were doing to take time out of their day to view it, to interact with it, and to give us feedback on what they thought about it.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? They might not have even like left a comment, but they liked it. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've had interactions and messages with people. LinkedIn is where I've spent a lot of my time, like, providing value and video content and things like that. And I can't tell you how many times I've received messages from people that admit they have never liked a post or interacted on a post that I've created ever.
Wow.
And then they'll come to me and they'll want help with something, or they want to hop on a call and ask me a question, or they're like, I watched that video and I've been following you for a long time and I really appreciate what you said. It really resonated. It's what I needed to hear, or whatever. Like, we have to, in the social media age, like, we've got this massive platform that we can use to provide value, but with it come drawbacks, and with it come little idiosyncrasies that we just have to deal with. And one of those is the fact that, like, people aren't forced to engage. It's not like we're standing on a street corner performing, and we see that person way over there, listening to us, and we know, like, we still feel Like, they paid attention to us. Someone can watch us without us ever knowing it. They're completely invisible. And that's why I think, especially at the beginning, it's very important that if you're providing value and you're creating, then you're doing it because you want to.
Yeah.
And because you see the need or you feel the urge to do it. And it can't be metrics based.
Yeah, you really have to go back to that why of why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I think passion plays a big part in that. God's instilled in each of us a passion, a desire to do something valuable with our life that would enhance other people around us. You know, while you were talking about that, just strictly talking about the metrics and the likes and the hearts and all of that, is that Jesus did minister to the multitudes. He did. He went out, he fed them, he taught them. So it wasn't that he just focused on the individual. He focused on the individual, but he also ministered to the multitudes as they were there. But he also understood that not everybody who gave him a thumbs up or clicked on the heart were going to actually follow him and actually need what he was talking or actually do what he was saying. And so I think the real things that were profitable were the things that he did in secret with the disciples when he talked to them. And, you know, he talked to the multitudes in parables, but then he came to the disciples and he built those relationships with it. I think that's the key. I think, you know, while I'm hearing you talk is that the metrics are good. That kind of gives you a base on, you know, is this reaching people? But through that multitude or through that 5 or 10 or whoever's watching this or responding back to that post or watching my photography or whatever it may be, is there somebody that I can connect with and that I can help along in life? Is there somebody that I can strengthen? I think that's the Jesus way, really. I feel like that's...
Yeah, and the Jesus way that you just referenced is something I've been thinking a lot about over the past couple of weeks. And thinking through the fact that through social media, we have the opportunity to walk with people almost as closely as Jesus walked with the disciples all the time.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, our social media goes with us in the bathroom,
That's right.
in the bedroom, in the car, in the restaurant, at work, walking down the street. And we have the opportunity, especially as believers who we're wanting to impact people for Christ. We're wanting to show people a better way. We're wanting to provide hope and encouragement and joy and a release from the bondage that is so easy to take on. Yeah. Like, through social media, we literally have the opportunity, like Jesus walked with the disciples and he ate with them and he slept in the same room with them and they went to the same places at the same times. Like we're there. We're in the pocket all the time. We have that opportunity. And I think, like, again, it comes back to what are you doing with it? I've been asking myself, and I've asked on a couple of the posts that I've made, like, if we aren't leveraging technology for ministry, can we truly say that we're going into all the world and seeking to make disciples? And I think that's a major awakening that not just I'm not the only one, but I think a lot of us are having, is that there's a whole world out there that when everything's normal, it's really easy to just kind of relegate it to its place, to its 4.5 hours a day or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I know for me that's spot on. I mean, that's exactly what's happened. I think for a lot of pastors, a lot of individuals and families, they've seen the possibility that's there, that we can be so connected. And I love how you tied that into Jesus walking with his disciples on a daily basis, that we can do that we're so connected to people right now, that we can pick up a phone or that we can connect via FaceTime or on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the medium is, that we could connect right then and there as we're making disciples, as we're investing in other people, and as we're being the way that Jesus wants us to be. I think that's so critical and such a great opportunity. I think it's such a huge opportunity that we have right now. We can't be afraid to step into it. I think is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I thought about Jesus at the well. Yeah. And the woman comes and meets him at the well. And that situation where, like, he's in this she expected privacy. Yeah. Like, she planned it. She planned privacy and alone time and away from everybody. And Jesus is waiting at the well with her. Yeah. Wow. Right? Waiting on her to be there. And I think there's so much opportunity for us to be in the moments when people need Jesus the most. Whether it's dark thoughts, whether it's the deepest sins, whether it's like the things that they won't request prayer for, the things they won't talk to anyone else about. I feel like we have the opportunity to be a voice and to be a bell on a phone that reminds them, like, okay, you've got value, you're worth it. Like, and again, it comes back to that inspiration, encouragement.
Yes.
Like connecting and providing value to people when they need it most, and we have that opportunity today.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that and being with us here tonight, talking about this. You know, when we started out talking about the mistakes and the miracles, just as you've been talking, I feel like we could also say it in another way of input-output, that we really need to moderate the input that's coming in. Because as we're concerned about the output and the opportunity is there to put out some great things, we also have to be concerned about the input into our lives. And while not all input is evil, not all input is bad. I mean, there's some great stuff. Even St. Louis, I mean, we saw in the St. Louis City Zoo, it's got some live video feeds, of the animal cages. Wonderful things. I think they've got some all kinds of different little things that we may share later on that there's input that you can have. Good input, not all bad, but I think we've got to moderate that too. Because this is the gateway to the soul right here. This is the gateway. And so whatever comes in here, right, gets down into the seabed of the heart. And then the Bible says from our heart comes all the issues of life. So I think our output is determined by our input. Obviously, that's a basic way to say it, is that our output is determined by our input. So the things that we're inputting right now is going to create the content that comes out of us. You can't have the good content unless you've got good content coming in, unless you've got whatsoever things are true and whatsoever things are honest and just and pure and all those wonderful things to think on. I think the input, we've got to set some guards up. That's why Job said, I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. I said no. And I think right now that scripture, it speaks more plainly to us than ever before, because all of this is in front of our eyes. We got to have these lens. We got to have some physical, spiritual lens. We got to have some spiritual lens from the input that's kind of coming in. Is there anything that you would kind of wrap up or to share with us kind of as we kind of conclude our time together? Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know there's so much more that we could say, and I appreciate those of you that have tuned in, know your time is valuable. This is such a critical topic, especially now, and I know many of you are creating some content, having some good things happen that we'll talk about in just a minute. But is there anything that you'd like to kind of wrap up and say to us about this whole technology? And
kind of moving away from the creative and the input a little bit, which is super, super practical. And this comes from my long years of consuming Facebook alongside many of my fellow New Lifers. I think we need to remember that our social media, like what we're doing, is less like a living room. I saw this analogy somewhere else. I can't remember where. It's less like a living room and more like a front porch or a front yard.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would like to encourage us, and I encourage myself, that we're the church. What we share, what we like, what we comment on, other people see. And if it's inflammatory, if it's offensive, if it's detrimental to their view of us as people, that would cause a hindrance or a stumbling block to our ability to have influence in their life and point them to Jesus. I feel like that's something we need to be very aware of, especially in election year.
Wow.
Like I know just in transparency, like there have been people from the church that I've stopped following.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to engage with what I was seeing on some of the stuff, like political stuff and things like that, because I don't want to harbor any feelings. Like they're the person I know and love and shake hands with and used to give hugs and all that on Sunday mornings, but then on social media it's really, really easy for us to feel like we're in a safe spot, and it's just me and my family, and really it's our whole neighborhood is watching.
Wow. And
so that's something that...
It's a great analogy on the front porch. I love that. Out on my front porch, I have that sign in my yard, Jesus 2020. We only have one message. And so everything that I post or everything that I like or everything that I share and what I receive, all of that has to be geared towards that Jesus 2020, not just outside, but also on the inside. And I think that's such a great analogy of us sitting out there, on the front porch or the front yard, that everything that we do is out there for people to see us. And that hopefully one day we can say, like Paul said to those that were listening to his writings when he was sending them out, follow me as I follow Christ.
Right.
So what you're seeing, what you're viewing, and what you're putting out, would you want people to follow you in that same respect? I think that's so powerful.
Sure.
That's such a good thing. We have so much more that we could talk about, and I really appreciate you being with us tonight, and glad that you tuned in. There are a few things maybe practically for your family. Some of these my family have followed. Some of them I talked to my wife this week, and I told her, some of these would be great for us to actually implement. But here's some ways as a family or as individuals that you could that would help you with the input that's coming in. Number one is Covenant Eyes. We have Covenant Eyes on all of our devices, whether it's our children, whether it's mine, whether it's my wife's. It's a filtering service that will filter in internet content. We've got it on our phones, everything. I think it would be really, really good. My girl wanted to get on Instagram the other day, and many of you have liked her post, and thank you for that. She's got all kinds of pictures on there. Beautiful pictures. I love it. All of herself, but they're absolutely beautiful. Love it. And she's on there, but we talked about it. We said, listen, not everything that's on there is godly and holy and pure. There's going to be advertisements. There's going to be other people that are vying for her attention. And so that Covenant Eyes has helped us in our whole family to make sure that we have that filter. Maybe try this. Maybe turn off the internet at night. We've got so much that's going on right now. This is one thing that we have not implemented that I talked to my wife and said, maybe we do this. It would stop maybe the temptation to check your email or to get on social media. Maybe just have, I know on my setting, I can turn the internet off if I want to, and maybe take a break from this right now. I told Brother Michael, I said before we started this, I'm looking forward to a fast, a media fast, really. There's so much going on,
Yeah.
Maybe leave that internet off for a little bit. This is something that we do, is put our devices away while you're eating dinner. When you're at the table, put all the devices away and share with one another. If you're the only one at the table, maybe just you and Jesus. Maybe just put the devices away and you and Jesus share a meal together. But put those devices away for a little bit and model digital wellness yourself, so that others follow you. They'll also have some digital wellness as well, and moderate what's coming in, making sure their motives are pure, so that when things come out of us, it's things that is going to bring a blessing, bring value, promote the gospel of Jesus Christ and the kingdom of God in the earth. Amen. Well, I appreciate y'all being with us tonight. Michael, thank you again for being with us. You did great. And make sure that you check out his awesome podcast. And he's got some really powerful ones on there with some people in our community I think that you'd really enjoy listening to. It's called The Constructivists. And so hope that you'll do that. Follow him on Facebook. Where are you on? LinkedIn, obviously, because you talked about that.
LinkedIn.
You're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram, Facebook. Yeah. So go follow him on all those wonderful things. Love you all. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you and your family. We're looking forward to this weekend. Tomorrow night is a date night for the couples, so make sure that you register for that. That's going to be an awesome time. Free registration, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And then Sunday is our drive-in service. So we're looking forward to that. God bless you, and thank you so much for being with us. Have a wonderful night.